blended families that are listening, a lot of them are in fire seasons.
Mm-hmm.
It just sucks sometimes. It's just really hard.
Yeah.
And I think people need to see that there's a better side.
We are standing here today because God intervened in our story early on. The first few years, I grew up in the church, he did not. The first few years were rough just because we were trying to figure it out. And we didn't have a lot of examples in our life to chase after. We didn't have a lot of people speaking into our lives.
You've got to be selfless. And I think until you recognize that, it's when you recognize that is when you realize, hey, we're on the same team and we're going the same direction. And if we want to get to point A to point B the fastest, then we have to figure out how to work together. We have to, put our ideas and desires and wants aside and somehow mutually work together so that we can get there as fast as we can.
For 30 years, you've been teaching people about marriage. Why is it so important to enjoy marriage?
Your blended family has a 100% chance of success when you do it God's way. We are Blended Kingdom Families, and we want to provide biblical resources to heal and restore families with a message of hope for the next generation.
Hey guys, welcome back to the BKF podcast. We are so excited to be with you today. We are joined by an absolutely amazing couple, dear friends of ours, Chad and Megan Lacefield. We're going to get into your story. We love it, and so much knowledge here. But before we do, if you haven't already, please take an opportunity, like, share, comment, leave us a review, send us an email.
All the things.
All the things. We want to connect with you. So please do that now. So
Yes. Well, Chad and Megan, welcome. We're
Thanks
excited
for
to have you on the
having
podcast.
us.
Yeah.
Excited to be here.
Yes. Well, you guys, we've been friends with Megan and Chad for the last 2 years. Well, Megan and I have been connected for a while, but then we finally connected in person and started a friendship, and they're just amazing people. And we have a lot to learn from them because, y'all, they have been married for 30 years and since high school. So
you
high
guys
school
look so young, by the way.
I know. I was
I don't get that often, though.
young.
She gets that. I don't get that.
You look young.
Yeah. Well,
We are.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they have the cutest little grandbabies. Oh my gosh. So they have 2 adult children and 3 grandchildren. And Chad and Megan are the hosts of the Built for Two podcast, where they encourage couples to fight for their marriage. And they talk a lot about legacy. And I just love what you guys are doing because just your heart and your passion behind it. And y'all do so much more, but they truly have a heart for marriage, you guys, and family. Chad has over 30 years in the roofing industry and is a sought after speaker, which you just spoke before you came to do the podcast.
We did this morning.
This morning he was speaking. And then Megan is an author, a digital creator, and a marriage coach. And she has a new podcast that she's doing with her friend called Honey Darlings for grandparents, which is so cute.
Honey Darlings?
Honey Darlings, because her grandma name is Darlin, and her friend's grandma name is Honey. So that's Honey Darlings. Isn't that the cutest thing?
We're like
There we
the
go.
coolest grandma club ever.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you something. Grandmas do not look like what my grandma used to look like. My grandma looked like a grandma.
Yes, right.
Big white hair.
Yeah.
They don't look like that anymore.
they
Well,
don't.
no, and when you live in a world of plastics and Botox now, grandmas are going to be looking good. We're going to be looking good when we're older. Just saying. But you guys, welcome to the podcast. And, I know a lot of our audience, they may not know who you guys are. So just tell us a little bit about you, your family, what you guys like to do, anything that you want to share that would let them know more about y'all.
Well, one of my favorite things about us is that we were high school sweethearts who got married in high school. We made a decision early on, before we even really knew cognizantly what that decision was, that we were going to fight for family. There were no other options. We decided over ice cream at Brahms that we were going to get married. And so here we are today. We are the most unlikely couple to be ministering in marriage ministry inside and outside of the church. But what I love more than that is just God's redemption story. I know that is the heart of Blended Kingdom Families. That is our heart for family across the board. But being high school sweethearts, we have grown up together. We grew up with our kids as kids, and it's just been such a fun journey because the man that I'm married to today, the woman he's married to today, is not the same person, of course. We all
'cause
know
you
that.
can actually cook now. So.
Without fail, I can tell you I knew how to cook nothing. I didn't even know how to use a pizza slicer, cutter, roller thing because I grew up in a home where my mom did all that. And I was like, how do you use this thing? I had never done a load of laundry because my mom did. I mean, I put my laundry away. I had just never actually done a load of laundry. So he didn't get the typical wife when he said, I do. But we are standing here today because God intervened in our story early on. The first few years, I grew up in the church. He did not. The first few years were rough just because we were trying to figure it out. And we didn't have a lot of examples in our life to chase after. We didn't have a lot of people speaking into our lives. We were just trying to figure it out. And I would say 3.5 years in, God got a hold of Chad's life. And that was the defining moment. And so ever since 1999, we have been on this pursuit of God and each other. And it has been a journey, and it has not been easy, but it has been steadfast, and God has showed up in so many powerful ways for us.
That's good.
Love
That's good.
that.
Anything to add, babe?
I would just say you've come a long way, babe. And,
Thank you.
I'm a
We know
quicker
where the
learner
humor
than
is.
she is.
Obviously, humor is a big part of y'all's marriage.
Yeah. No, I would just say, obviously, I think when we said yes or I do, we didn't even know what that meant. We just knew it was the right thing to do. But what is the right thing, and what does that truly mean? And I think as we've walked down this life and this journey for 30 years, just the excitement when you look back of what the I do and yes that we committed to, and what that has done for legacy and for just changing our family, just excites me as we talk about it.
Yep. That's awesome.
Well, I love that you use the term fight for your marriage. So I want to settle on this for just a second. If it was easy, you wouldn't have to fight for it. If you didn't have an enemy, you wouldn't have to fight. So, and I know we're speaking really into marriages today, and that's and everybody who watches our podcast is either married, newly married, about to get married, wants to get married, or they're fighting for their marriage too. So I want to ask the question about what have you learned about fighting for your marriage instead of fighting against your marriage?
So I think when I think about that, ultimately it comes down to Chad is not the enemy. I am not the enemy. The enemy is the enemy. And there is a real enemy that is coming against our marriage and everyone else's. And the enemy's job is to steal, kill, and destroy. And so we have to be just as willing to fight against what's coming against us as we are to fight for the one that we're in this battle with, the one that we get to do life with. And so I think for us, because God got a hold of our lives when we were so young, Chad was 23, I was 21, and we got immediately involved in church. We started, hearing from the Lord and practicing what that looked like. We had mentors and people speaking into our lives. So we had godly examples at that point to look to watch how they handled conflict, to watch how we got involved in growing kids God's way. I love it. If you were to watch those videos today, you'd be like, what in the world? But it was such a foundational moment for us as parents, learning how to fight together for what we're wanting to see in our kids and in our legacy. But ultimately, fighting for our marriage starts with our hearts, a heart towards humility, a heart towards the greater good of the Lacefield family versus me winning and him losing, or him winning and me losing.
And I think it's so easy when you come into marriage, obviously as young as we were, but at any marriage, you could be 50 coming into a new marriage, is you've got to be selfless. And I think until you recognize that, it's when you recognize that is when you realize, hey, we're on the same team and we're going the same direction. And if we want to get to point A to point B the fastest, then we have to figure out how to work together. We have to, put our ideas and desires and wants aside and somehow mutually work together so that we can get there as fast as we can.
Yeah.
Well, and I love the idea. The irony around the concept of selfless is that you're really selling out what you think is going to make you happy versus what will make you happy.
Amen.
Yeah.
It's like the idea around, I can give this up and it's something I desire, so I'm being selfless. But what you're really getting is something much better. You're getting the bigger reward in the long run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's so good. Well, and what I love that you guys also teach on is legacy, and you were just hit on that just a second ago, Megan. you know, and as newlyweds, and, you know, you guys were talking about how you got married young, like, you're going to experience conflict. We literally just talked about that. It's not like if, it's when, you know, and how are we going to do that in a healthy, intentional way that is also God honoring? You know, and one of the questions I have is, you know, how do you live out the legacy you want in your marriage and family through everyday choices you make? And especially like when you're working through like conflict and things like that are going to come up.
I think for us, legacy is built in the little moments. Legacy is built in the daily choices that we make. It's not about what we're leaving our kids when we're gone. It's what are we sowing into them right now? It was super early on. I think my kid, I had one in elementary, one in middle school. I was preaching a sermon to parents. I got to preach on the big stage at church as a children's pastor. And we were talking about parenting and there was a book that I loved. It was called Parenting Beyond Your Capacity. And it's just talking about how we are sowing into not the current version of our children, but the 18-year-old who's going to leave our house. And God gave me this revelation. We are parenting our grandkids' parents. And so that kind of shifted things for me, where I was all about behavior modification, regulation, control. It kind of shifted to how do we create space for them? I think if I were to look back on anything that I have any regrets as a parent, or we have regrets as a couple, it's in the expectations, but also trying to manage our kids instead of giving more space for them to make the mistakes and then come to us. And the same is true in our marriage. You know, we've had couples who've walked through really hard stuff. There've been infidelity and addiction, and we've always tried to create a space in our marriage where confession is invited. There's an invitation for confession versus you're going to get caught or you're going to get busted, or you know, we want Holy Spirit to do His job. And we have to trust that. And so the way that we fight for legacy is just living it out in our homes. And we know without a doubt there are things that we did not do well or the best we could have, or the best ultimately in the long run, but we did the best we knew how at the time. And if you were to ask our kids who are 29, almost 30, and 26, there's very little they will say. I mean, and there are kids and they love us and there's so much grace there. But even some conversations I've had with my son, he's like, Mom, Dad, like, I wouldn't say there's nothing you did wrong. You did the best you could with what you knew, and here we are today. And, you know, I used to always say success in parenting, success in family is when the kids come home when it's their choice. And we live in the fruit of that every single day in the small moments that we get to spend with our kids and our grandkids.
But I think the part of, you know, I wish we'd have learned this 10 years into marriage, not 15 or 20 years in the marriage. I don't remember when we learned this, but really just have fight rules. And the fight rules allowed us, if you will, go to timeout. And our timeouts looked a little different. I go to the gym and she goes for a walk. Right. But that allowed us to work through things quicker than one, either you sweep it under the rug and you just keep going, or you work through it and it works out in a way that you can build on. And so we would basically take a timeout, if you will. We'd have fight rules and like, hey, this is one, give us a moment. And we would go our separate ways. We would never leave, but we would come back and then we would say, yeah, you're right, or no, you're right, or hey, let's do it differently. But I think that allowed us to build on our legacy because we were very transparent with each other as we were living real life with real situations, with real problems that, like you said, it's not if, but when. But it's how do you handle those situations.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, and I love that you talked about conflict. It seems like that's been the theme of the day. We've done a lot of
conflict
podcasts on, and I think it's not just the way you handle it; it's the way you build from it. So I think that if we look back and we're just 12 years into this, which feels like
babies, we're babies.
Y'all are killing it.
Yeah. I feel like it's been a while. It's been a minute since we got married. But I will say what builds marriage is the building block after conflict. It's like, hey, we went through this, we did this, maybe we made mistakes, and through this process, maybe we did it perfectly. Who knows? But what we did is we took it, we put cement around it, and we built on top of it. So I think my question to you is how have you found that by managing conflict with legacy in mind, How does that really feel about, you know, as you built a strong marriage? 30 years is a long time of admitting that you're wrong, Chad. Admitting that, you know, you could have done that just a little bit better.
Always.
Which is fine, which is great. I think that's a great way to get it done.
Yep.
But what have you guys learned about that process?
I would say for us, I'm going to let him talk a little bit more about it, but we learned early on that we were really good at keeping score. We were really good at holding our mental lists of what he's done and what she's done and withholding based on some of those things. Well, if he's not giving me words of affirmation, well, I'm not going to give him physical intimacy. Or, you know, we use these things as weapons instead of opportunities for conversation and growth. And honestly, the things that were the things that caused conflict early on in our marriage, I'm sorry to say it, but are still the same things we're dealing with today. In different ways. In different ways. We have different tools, but those same things try to rear their ugly heads because the enemy knows our weaknesses and the enemy knows our insecurities and insufficiencies. And those are the types of things, you know, we talk about them over and over, but instead of holding them against each other as, well, you didn't do this, so I'm not doing this, or I'm going to do this because you did this, we now have that, you know, wipe the scoreboard moment where we get to act and walk in humility and we get to honor each other. And, you know, ultimately it comes down to, are our hearts right with the Lord before we can ever walk in unity here?
Yeah, that's good.
And I think the biggest thing early in marriage, it's a deal breaker. Like you're like, I can't believe you're not changing. I can't believe. And so when you say those type of things, right, it's just, you are keeping score. You're like, no, I'm not. Like, yeah, you are. Yeah. Right? Like, you know, it's 7-6, right? I'm winning or you're winning or whatever it is. But
the competitive one.
But I do believe it's funny that, you know, there's things that after 30 years you're still dealing with. It's just you're dealing with it a different way. The approach is different. It's not the end of the world. Like tomorrow's going to be fine if her closet's still messy, right? Like it's okay, right? Just people won't. Oh, did I just say that out loud? I mean, if your closet's clean, maybe my side. No, it's your side for sure. But it's how you deal with it, right? And it's how you're able to say that, you know, if God is in our marriage and God is for our marriage and God is who we're chasing after, then at the end of the day, whatever is bothering you, the conflict, it's not that big of a deal. Yeah. And it's really recognizing that and get to that point.
Yeah.
So what you really said is the number of fights that could be avoided if you hire a closet designer would be immense.
100%.
If you could go back 30 years, would you have just put that in your annual budget?
For sure.
There you go.
For sure.
That was fruit.
That was all you heard from that.
I heard a lot, but I think if there's a guy who's listening,
takeaways. That was the key takeaway.
They heard that.
Yes.
What really bothers you, solve that problem first.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Well, you know, and I think that's so true. You know, you know, for Scott and I, and we've only been married 12 years, but you know, I remember, and even to this day, like when we, you know, if we have a disagreement, I'll remember things from, I will never forget, we were leaving church on a Sunday, and this was in our first year of marriage, because I remember I was pregnant with Shay.
This is news to me. I have no idea.
I
have no recollection of this event at all.
I would, like, anytime we had conflict, like, I would shut down. Like, I wouldn't talk, you know, and I remember him so specifically, he was like, I need you to just touch me or tell me, like I need us to resolve things quickly. I can't let things fester or whatever, you know, blah, blah, blah. And so it's funny because even to this day, it's interesting, like over time, how you change and, you know, how we communicate that now. So because I remember him being so intentional in that conversation, like we're very quick to resolve things, you know, but again, it takes time, and it's not that we don't still have the same conversations or the same issues that come up, but to your point, like we handle them differently. We resolve things, I feel like, in a more therapeutic and healthy way versus doing it in a...
I just seem to forget things really quick, so I'm like, what were we arguing about? Like, I don't remember what was going on.
Or it's a funny meme of like if we're arguing, he's like, take off your clothes, you know, to like change the environment, like change the whole,
completely change the focus.
You're just like, and then you can't be mad anymore. You're like, what? Like,
I find it very simple just to tell him, you just need to calm down and you'll be fine.
That's been his go-to lately.
Yeah,
just calm down.
Yeah, or he'll be like, you know, and it's joking, but he'll be like, you know, you need to calm down because you're just acting like your mother. Like it's like this joke that we have, and I'm like, dude, you are on thin ice right now.
Yeah.
Like,
It sometimes it's received well and sometimes not so.
yeah, I'm like, I know you're trying to be funny, but like that
it hits 9 out of 10 times. This goes good. And humor is, you know what? I will say this, and knowing you guys, enjoying marriage.
Yeah.
And I want to we're coming to the end of the time together, so I want to talk a little bit about just a quick question. Why is it important to enjoy it? Like there's the answer seems obvious, but I want to ask you. For 30 years, you've been married. For 30 years, you've been fighting battles. For 30 years, you've been learning about marriage. For 30 years, you've been teaching people about marriage. Why is it so important to enjoy marriage?
That's good.
For 30 years, we've been two kids who fell in love. So we have to remember that. We have to remember what drew us to them in the first place. It was his wit and charm. The very first thing I ever said to Chad was, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Roller skating." We're in the middle of a pasture at a high school pasture party. There are no roller skates anywhere. And so people are like, "How did you two meet?" I'm like, there is no church, camp, Bible club. Like, I took his beer away and he kissed me to get it back. So fun and like the chase and all of that has always been a part of our relationship.
Yeah.
And so we don't know any different. Like, we go to Gloria's with a deck of cards. We, like to go do fun things, go on, opportunities where we can just have fun, go on an adventure. But there's also work that needs to be done, real life things that we have to take care of.
But who doesn't like to laugh? I mean, and that's the thing is, we have enough seriousness, whether that be work or raising our kids.
Yeah.
I mean, you just have to learn to just stop and get naked. Like you said, it's a meme, but it's like, if that's what it takes to get you to laugh, then that's your code word of, we got to chill out, stop, and laugh. And so I think the more we laugh, the more we enjoy each other, and the more we want to be adventurous in what we do. And I think that the pursuit gets that much more fun the more we laugh together. And, we're at a different age and stage of life, being empty nesters, so it's easier to travel and pursue adventures and all that stuff. But I would even, for the young people out there, if I look back, just stop. You said tonight's actually a free night. Figure out how you're going to laugh as a family. Like, that should be your goal, Scott, when you go home, is how are we going to laugh as a family? Right? Am I going to walk in some goofy dad outfit just to make the family laugh? It's worth it, right? Like, whatever that is, and it stops and it changes everything. And then you pursue that on a weekly basis.
I love that this conversation happened, because it's so telling to what marriage is really like. But also, you will struggle later. But it's also, you have a different level of fun later. And I know blended families that are listening, a lot of them are in fire seasons. It just sucks sometimes. It's just really hard.
Yeah.
And I think people need to see that there's a better side, that with consistent work, where you don't get the gains without the work. You don't get them. You don't get the success without putting in the daily things that get you there. Every one of them is a building blocks, like we talked about. So I'm excited that they got that opportunity. So we have one final question.
Yep.
And then we're going to talk about where they can find you guys, okay?
Find you all.
So our podcast, our name of our ministry, Blended Kingdom Families, our podcast, the Blended Kingdom Family Podcast. But what is a Blended Kingdom family to you?
For me, it is one of God's sweetest redemption stories, because God takes what the enemy has stolen and turns it for good. God's word says all things work together for the good of those who love him and who are called according to his purpose. And we all have a call. And what I love about what you guys are doing is that you are supporting these families. And we are blessed because of it, because you carry a different skill set than we do. We encounter so many blended families in marriage ministry. There is no perfect 2 + 2 = 4.2 marriage. And so we have couples in our lives that we do community with. We have couples that we have coached. We have couples that we performed second, marriage ceremonies for. And so it is a part of our lives. And we believe with all of our hearts that God does some of his greatest work with some of the messiest stories. stories. And so what we love about and what we believe, is that God can use blended kingdom families to redeem stories.
Love that.
And I think for me, growing up with a single mom, if y'all's ministry would have been available, how it would have dramatically changed her life, 30 years ago when my dad left, right?
Yeah.
Like, would there have been hope and opportunity for her to meet and blend a family? And so I just cheer you on for, like you said, there's a lot of hard days, right? But there's a lot of great days, and I think there's a lot of great in our future. And so I just cheer you guys on for getting in the trenches, putting the ugly on, and fighting for the fight, because it's worth it, right? The adventure that you're going to go on and where you're eventually going to be is worth the fight.
Yeah.
Love that.
Aw, thank you guys. Well, and we love y'all too. And so we want everyone to be able to find you guys, your marriage ministry, the podcast, and how they can get connected.
So we are builtfor2.com. You can find us on Instagram at builtfor2marriage. We love to share on our podcast from all platforms. It is called the Built for Two podcast. So pretty much Google Built for Two and you're going to find us, Chad and Megan Lacefield on YouTube. So we just love to impart little truths. We throw some humor in there as well. And we just want to inspire, empower, and encourage.
Awesome.
I love that.
Well, guys, thank you all for joining today and sharing your hearts with us. I know that this is going to bless a lot of people who are listening to this. And so we love you guys, and we're excited you got to be here today.
Plus, it's just a lot of fun having you guys.
Yeah.
It's just cool to hang out with.
I know we're closing out, but our boys they love to play. We're teaching how to play Texas Hold'em right now.
Yeah.
And so it has gotten extremely competitive because we are in a house full of boys and they all play football. And by nature, they are all competitive, even Scott. And Scott he hit a three-peat. No, you didn't hit the three-peat. Case won.
No, I won.
You did? Okay. So
No, I won. Okay.
he had a three-peat. The idea is to knock Scott off of his fourth peat, I guess, that would be coming up. So, but he gets what's comical about it and why we laugh is because he's aggressive. He does not let the kids win. And it is funny to see.
It's not funny. That there is nothing. I don't know. Maybe there are other dads out there. Maybe I'm weird. I don't know. I won't let my kids beat me in things. Is that normal?
I won't let my granddaughter win in tic-tac-toe.
Thank you.
Five.
Thank you.
That is
Thank you.
so funny.
I just can't do that. I feel like it's teaching a bad lesson.
Oh my gosh, that's so
So if you are one of those parents like me that
This may not be the podcast for you. But
I understand. Like I just look at it and go, hey, if you're gonna beat me, you better earn it.
That's right.
You're gonna have to earn it.
So funny.
And so, yeah. So yeah, it's poker night. Guys, thank y'all so much for joining us. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. Make sure to tune in next week for a new podcast to drop. You guys have a wonderful day.
Be blessed in all that you do.
Hey friends, so glad you were here with us today, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. You can find more resources from Blended Kingdom Families at blendedkingdomfamilies.com. Join us again next time as we talk about more blended family topics. Be blessed in all that you do, and remember, nothing will be impossible with God.